I was a soldier, I got blown up. Shit happens.
The looks on some of the younger lads' faces at that stage, they must have thought that I was leading them into hell.
Nothing since then has ever been the same.
Major David Bradley, Sergeant Andre Pepper and Corporal Sean Robson were all members of B Company, 1st Battalion of the Princess of Wales's Royal Regiment, serving in Basra. On August 9, 2004, they received an emergency call. 9 members of another battalion had been attacked by insurgents loyal to Muqtada al-Sadr and were stranded in downtown Basra.
We were aware at that time of the American contractors in Fallujah that were captured and burnt and whose bodies were hung from the bridge. There was no question of us ever leaving another fellow British soldiers behind.
The words from Major Bradley was, by all means necessary, get them back.
With no coordinates for the lost men, the battalion boarded their armoured warrior vehicles and headed into the insurgent-controlled city.
Well, this will be the red route, so you've got on August the 9th when the company deployed under Major Bradley, they came straight down this road. From here on in, all after this, it was all empty, all the street was empty.
They always say it's like a combat indicator. The street's clear. It wasn't that the street was clear, the whole area was clear. There was nothing. But when we hit the Bath Party, the big roundabout by Red 17, suddenly it all completely changed.
We were immediately opened up on with what seemed to be almost every weapon system an Iraqi had.
This DVD was sent to us maybe a couple of days after the incident by the insurgents themselves. The amount of enemy couldn't really be judged. It felt like close to 100, maybe more, and they were literally just showing themselves for a few seconds, allowing themselves to fire off a shot and then disappearing behind cover.
I lost the other vehicle, I couldn't see it because the weight of fire actually pushes back down the turret. You put your head up, the rounds were pinging up round the hatch.
And I remember having looked from right, scanning my rifle and looking up on these rooftops. I didn't hear a bang, but I just felt a pressure and I remember being pushed over to one side and looking down and seeing a thick, dark, grey explosion. My hand being flung up, covered in blood and seemed to be split in half like a cloven hoof.
And I see Major Bradley's vehicle looked in a pretty bad state. Smoke coming out of it, no movement, and for want of a better word, no signs of life.
Bradley's vehicle turned back to camp, heavily damaged and full of casualties, leaving the mission in the hands of junior officers.
Pretty much the whole of the head shed was taken out. The officer commanding, the sergeant major, even the medic.
By now, the 9 missing soldiers had phoned in coordinates leading the rescue mission to the former Bath Party headquarters, held by the insurgents.
Ah, there we are. One of the lads, Tomo, then decided to make a move into this location here. Pushed his way in, had a bit of a scrap in here with the militia, and then had to make his way out through sheer weight of fire. He was then asked to double check, at which stage I believe he said, if I re-enter into that compound, then I won't be coming back out.
Private Leo Callahan was hit during the firefight while he provided top cover from his armoured vehicle. He was evacuated back to base.
But you see with the blue blocks down the bottom, that's where the round that killed Callahan came from. And they had to conduct a casevac from there, which is obviously very difficult under fire. With the guys in the back trying to do everything they could for him. Indeed, in the back he had all his friends.
At this stage, when Peps told me, the look on his face just suggested that we're going at it alone as one vehicle.
Despite the casualties, the troops continued to look for the 9 missing men. A British helmet was eventually spotted on the roof of a nearby building.
And then Peps just turned to me and went, "Right, Robbo, you're going to have to go out and get them." And my reply to that was, "Fucking right I am." And literally within seconds, we were out of the back door of the Warrior.
This would be the first time that I'd ever done operations in built-up areas. It was a bit nerve-wracking. Everything looks completely different to the way I remember it. This rooftop up here is where the helmet was spotted, and we know specifically that is our helmet. We're the only ones wearing them. That's where they are. Let's go get them.
You could just see relief on their face, but at the same time, they were drawn and tired, and you could see that They were happy that we were there. We then moved them down towards our vehicle and we put them in the back of the Warrior. We had no other option but to move on foot. When you're telling the lads this, as the rounds are going past their heads, they must have thought that I was leading them into hell, and we knew it was going to get worse.
Under heavy enemy fire, the battalion finally made it back to base. The encounter was a turning point for all involved.
We get into the gate of Camp Cherokee, and as I sort of walked a couple of paces, some lads with a stretcher turned up, and I remember just collapsing back in the stretcher and just thinking, I'm not going to get back up from this. The doctor who operated on me gave me a 5% chance of survival. I then remember being wheeled out towards the helicopter, and the next thing I knew, I woke up in Birmingham 5 days later.
We went down there to rescue 9 lives. We achieved that, but unfortunately we lost one of our own.
I couldn't soldier on, and I was medically discharged. And I suddenly became Mr. Bradley. I love the army. Iraq was the most fulfilling thing I have done. Leading men in combat, in a job I dreamed of, to suddenly find yourself so weak and vulnerable at the injustice and the unfairness of it. You feel like howling at the moon. But I'm alive. Leo Callaghan sadly died.
Then we were told about Leo Callaghan, and the room just felt silent, empty for a while. And I remember looking around at some of the lads' faces, and in particular Officer, who was Leo Callaghan's best friend at the time, and just seeing his face, it was absolutely distraught, and he started to cry. Most of the boys were 18 at the time, very young indeed, and I think 4 out of them had literally joined the battalion about 4 months before. Quite a few people did leave after the experiences we had on Telic 4. Not everybody wants to relive it.
Nothing since then has ever been the same. And I won't say that I'm numb to it, but certainly there's nothing to me now that was quite the same as that initial time, that initial 3 hours.
Probably every soldier, there's a little boy in you that you want to go to war. Once you've done it, you just cross a line. You understand that it's not something you should wish for. I was a soldier, I got blown up. Shit happens. I wouldn't have chosen to be anywhere else on that day than leading B Company.